You know, everybody knows the big 80s action films. Predator, The Terminator, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, RoboCop. All of those films deserve every bit of the notoriety and the conversation that they get. But the 1980s had a second tier, and maybe a third and a fourth tier of action cinema that was just absolutely insane and every bit as entertaining and in some cases just as well made as all of those films, but nobody talks about them. Well, today we're going to, because I have 10 of them. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's go do this. All right, so a quick note on the standard for this list. Just a little disclaimer. These are not bad movies celebrated ironically. They are genuinely what I consider to be good action films. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have a good, big, thick slice of 80s cheese on them sometimes, but they get buried under the louder, bigger, more well-recognized films that we know, and they just had the bad luck of being released in maybe the greatest time for action movies ever, so they kind of got ignored. Every film on this list, though, deserves a real audience, and most of them never got one. We're going to fix that. All right, kicking this off with one of my late father's favorites. Now, he was a big Chuck Norris fan. He was a bigger Indiana Jones fan, and this one kind of combined them both. It's 1986's Firewalker, and this is maybe the most purely fun film on this list. Chuck Norris and Lou Gossett Jr. as Max Donner and Leo Porter, two adventurers who stumble onto a map leading to a Central American treasure, and this is a Canon Films production. So there you go, right there. That sets the bar, and this is why Firewalker gets his place on this list. First of all, it just damn well deserves it. But the chemistry between Chuck Norris and Lou Gossett Jr. is next level extraordinary in this film. It literally feels like Canon Films' version of Indiana Jones, but with Chuck Norris and Lou Gossett Jr. and Chuck Norris's martial arts. But there is a quiet intensity to both of these guys, and then absolutely great comedic timing that come off in like the best buddy cop way that you ever are going to imagine. There's a great, just whole comedic chemistry to them both. And then the action sets up great because you got Chuck Norris and Canon Films who do action, and then you got the adventure of Indiana Jones. Firewalker's not trying to be Predator. It's not even really trying to be Indiana Jones, but it kind of is Canon's version of Raiders of the Lost Ark with a tiny fraction of the budget and a director that ain't Steven Spielberg. But it comes off as genuinely fun and unforgettable, so check it out. We're starting with Firewalker. Now, one good Chuck Norris film deserves another, and this is the second and last one on the list. It's 1982's Silent Rage. And yes, Chuck is twice on this list because Chuck is legendary, and he was damn sure legendary in the 1980s. But this one has a completely different energy than Firewalker because Silent Rage is essentially a horror movie. But it's an action film, so it still deserves to be here. That's why it's insane. The first act is Chuck Norris as a sheriff, that kind of action drama. He's competent, he's restrained, almost meditative. And then a genetically enhanced, indestructible serial killer escapes from a psychiatric facility, and the film becomes a horror movie. It literally becomes Chuck Norris fighting Michael Myers from Halloween. That's what it is, except it's still taking itself seriously as an action film and a Chuck Norris film. There is no winking at the audience in this movie. No acknowledgement of how strange this tonal combination is. That's what makes it an insane 80s film. There is a commitment to it in here. The karate sheriff versus Michael Myers. That's what you got here, and it plays it completely straight, and you gotta love that. It's not accidentally funny. Silent Rage is intense. It's Chuck Norris when he accidentally made a Halloween horror movie. Silent Rage. Now, next up on the list is one of the inspirations for this list. It's 1980's The Final Countdown, and there's a 4K out of this now, and I'm eventually going to get it. This is Kirk Douglas and Martin Sheen, and they are aboard the USS Nimitz, a modern nuclear aircraft carrier that sails mysteriously into a storm and emerges on December 6th, 1941, the day before Pearl Harbor. And then there is a big moral question at the center of this film. The final countdown is like fascinating the way it handles this. You have the most powerful warship ever built. You are 1 day away from Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. You are 1 day away from that. Should you intervene? What could happen if you intervene? Will it change the course of human history? Should you intervene? What would you do if you had the power to stop that? Man, the film handles that question with genuine seriousness and restraint. It is a great time travel, action, sci-fi, crazy film. And then there are sequences with modern, like, I think it's F-14 Tomcats engaging with Japanese Zeros. It's crazy. You got real military hardware in this film, shot with real craft. The Final Countdown is more of a thinking person's action film that leans into insane sci-fi, an underrated piece of 80s cinema. Check out The Final Countdown. I couldn't help myself. Sorry, y'all. All right, now you got some more Canon Films cheese, and one of my favorite sort of stars of this genre from the 1980s. This is a movie that my brother and I wore out. It is Sho Kosugi in Pray for Death. It's time to go back to the shadows. And if you've seen this, you know what I'm talking about here. This might be the most effective, like, Canon Films ninja revenge film of the entire decade that they produced. A Japanese businessman moves with his family to America for a fresh start. That's Sho Kosugi. And the local mob decides his new restaurant is useful for their operations. Let's just say that. And they make the mistake of hurting his family. And what they don't know, and what the film reveals slowly and deliberately, is that this particular businessman is a legendary ninja warrior who has spent years trying to live that life as an assassin, a ninja, all of that behind him. But the revenge that follows in the third act is like over the top, visceral, committed. Sho Kosugi doing extraordinary physical stunts, even though sometimes you can see the hits miss by about 3 feet, and the sound effects and the action's still there, though. His speed is awesome, his precision. He was a legitimate martial artist, a man protecting his family, going for revenge. Pray for Death is the ninja film for people who thought ninja film genre was just Canon Films nonsense. This one is more than that, pretty intense. Go back to the shadows with Pray for Death. All right, now we got one that involves the movie industry a little bit, and I'm always going to dig stuff like that. This is 1986's FX. Now, this is actually the Arrow Films release of FX and FX2, but we're talking about FX here. And you got a Hollywood special effects artist who's hired by the Justice Department in this to fake a mob boss's death as part of a witness protection operation. And then the operation goes wrong, and everyone tries to kill him. And this is what makes it a super cool thing. First of all, I love the whole practical effects, the movie aspect coming in as an action concept. But Raleigh's only weapons are the tools of his trade as an FX artist. The theatrical fog, the fake blood, the magic movie illusions, the smoke and mirrors that he has, mechanical props, a man with no combat training, defeating trained killers using his specific set of skills as a special effects artist. And the creativity required to construct action sequences around that with those limitations is pretty damn awesome when you're watching it. Every action beat, requires the audience to kind of like think along with the hero rather than just watch him kick ass and win. You got Brian Brown, who is charming. You got Brian Dennehy in this as a detective investigating, doing exactly what Brian Dennehy always did, making every scene feel more real and intense and grounded than it probably should have been. FX is a very smart, insane though, crazy, different take on an action film that almost nobody remembers. Now we have one that straddles the line almost between horror in a little way. Definitely thriller, erotic thriller, but definitely action. And all of that mixes together because it's directed by Abel Ferrara. So that makes a lot of sense with 1984's Fear City. Now, you've got Tom Berenger in here, who's a former boxer running a talent agency in New York whose dancers are being targeted by martial arts killers. Yeah, that's all the plot. And yeah. But you got Billy D. Williams in here too, one of the coolest men alive, who is a detective who's investigating all this. You got Melanie Griffith, like I said, Abel Ferrara directing. The way he can make New York City feel and look like the city itself is trying to kill you, like it's an oppressor coming after you. Fear City is the most adult film, and I don't mean like adult film, but it is it is adult film, not as a euphemism at all. It is super complex, despite the ridiculousness and insanity of the plot that I just described. There's a lot of psychological weight to this. It is a very grown-up film. Fear City's not a safe film at all. Completely intense, completely insane, well-crafted action thriller, but not safe. It is New York City as a threat. Check out Fear City. Now we have an underrated Sean Connery film. That's my bad attempt at his accent. But it's 1981's Outland. And this is Peter Hyams directing Sean Connery as a federal marshal, William T. O'Neill, stationed on a mining colony on one of Jupiter's moons. And he's investigating a series of violent deaths among the workers. And it's basically known as High Noon in Space. And I would have to kind of agree with that, but it's still executed with great, like, pitch. Like, it weaves through there really good, but that still lands it on the insane action movies. Even though it leans into sci-fi, it's got the Western roots, you're placing all that in space, it definitely qualifies on this list. But it's still super grounded despite all that, because the mining colony feels like an actual place. Like, it's industrial, it's cramped, it's not glamorous anyway, the people are not glamorous, they feel like real people, not sci-fi archetypes. Connery's Marshall feels like a man who's doing a job rather than a hero who's on a mission. And when the hired killers arrive, the entire colony has been bought by the corporate interests that he is investigating. So the countdown to their arrival is a well done sort of lesson in sustained tension. This is a really good performance, underrated all the way around. A great 4K here by Arrow. One of the most underseen films, I would probably say, in Sean Connery's catalog, but check out Outland. All right, next up is one of my favorite underrated hidden gem action films ever, and it's so hidden I can't find my Snapper Case DVD version of it, though it's here somewhere. I'm not even sure it's ever got a Blu-ray, though it deserves a grand treatment. I am talking about Next of Kin, starring Patrick Swayze, a Chicago cop whose younger brother is murdered by the mob, and Liam Neeson, his older brother, Brer Rabbit, they're country folks. They're still living up at the woods, the Appalachian code, like the, of mountain style justice. And the film builds slowly to where in this third act, you have these families like the city Italian like mob and the like mountain people family, these two warring families, very different, but their codes are very similar, and it essentially becomes a war between an Appalachian hillbilly gang out for justice and the Chicago mob in the middle of a city cemetery with horses, crossbows, chaos. It sounds ridiculous, and it is ridiculous a little, but it is absolutely awesome. Besides Swayze, you got Liam Neeson, you've got Helen Hunt in this film. The cast goes on and on. A super underrated, underseen, sort of forgotten film that's a little bit insane in its concept, but damn, does it work. Infinitely rewatchable, a high recommend. Next of Kin. Now, next up, we couldn't do a list like this without some Walter Hill. How about 1984's Streets of Fire? This might be his most visually sort of extraordinary action film that he had done that nobody ever talks about. And I know some people do. I've heard some people on the channel, but as a whole, this one kind of gets buried. You've got Michael Paré as Tom Cody, who's a soldier returning to his hometown to rescue his former girlfriend, played by Diane Lane, from a gang that has kidnapped her. You got Willem Dafoe as Raven, the gang leader, in one of his most purely physical, unhinged performances as the villain in this. You even got Rick Moranis in here, Amy Madigan. Streets of Fire calls itself a rock and roll fable. It's very stylized in the universe. It's like simultaneously 1950s and 1980s without actually being either one, really. And the production design creates this world that's set with those parameters that never really actually existed, but feels completely coherent. The cinematography is great in this, because I'm a sucker. If you follow the channel, the nighttime, the neon, the rain, the smoke, the reflections in the street, the pavement, all that stuff, the visual grammar of a gritty nighttime city, all of that exists in this film. The film failed completely at the box office, and it spent 40 years trying to find its footing as a cult hit. If you're watching this video, you're the exactly right person to check it out. Tonight is a good time to check out Streets of Fire. And at number 1, we got to finish out with some Walter Hill, because this is the movie that completely inspired this list, and it was just gifted to me, and because I couldn't remember if I'd ever seen it or not. When I watched it, it turned out I did remember seeing it. I just had forgotten. I don't want you to forget. That's why I made this list. That's why Extreme Prejudice from 1987 is number 1. And I want to tell you, that's how this ended up being number 1. Somebody commented in my comments, like, how did you not see this? And then I got it from them, went and watched it. That's the comment section doing what the comment section should do, and it's absolutely awesome. This is the synergy we have, and I am a huge Walter Hill fan, so I couldn't believe I had missed something. I loved this film. Walter Hill directing. This was his second film on the list. You could make a whole list of Walter Hill films of action stuff, and it's proof that he is one of the most criminally underrated directors of all time, definitely of the decade. He's one of my favorite all-time directors. Nick Nolte starring in this as a Texas Ranger on the Mexican border. Powers Booth as Cash Bailey, his childhood friend who's now become a drug lord. And the film understands something, and Walter Hill understands something about male, like serious masculine grown-up friendship and the betrayal and the cost of choosing different sides. And it's portrayed in a way that most action films are never going to attempt. And the finale, the shootout, is choreographed with a lot of specific moments and attention, the sequence, how everything's done. This is something that made Sam Peckinpah and the Wild Bunch like happy with the way it brought slow motion and the clarity of the bullets and what they do to the human body. All those things that most action films just kind of avoid. That is all here. Walter Hill made this film as a conscious homage to Sam Peckinpah, and he achieved something very few homages actually achieve. A film that honors the influence while still being distinctly its own thing. It's distinctly a Walter Hill film. There's no question. Extreme Prejudice, insane but insanely good action film from the 1980s. That's why it's number 1. Check it out. And drop your comments in the recommendations from you below. You never know, I might find something I haven't seen, but you need to check these out. That's how this works. We got 10 action films here, 1 decade, a genuine argument that the 1980s was the most extraordinary decade for films of all genres. I have no doubt that that is the case. Firewalker, Silent Rage, Final Countdown, Pray for Death, FX, Fear City, Outland, Next of Kin, Streets of Fire, Extreme Prejudice, all of them. Go find one tonight. Drop me one that I didn't have in here if you think I need to see it. And let me know which one of these you're going to watch first. Because, hey, my next list might come down entirely to something that one of you tell me out there. So subscribe. like the video, hang around, hit the hype button. Apparently that helps. And if you want to help a little bit more, you can join my Patreon. You'll get special members only videos there, physical media reviews, members only discussions, and so much more. And everything helps the channel. And of course, you're going to get your name in lights on every single video, and it all helps the channel, and I really do appreciate it. But until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. I know.